Justice Watchers, before we begin, I want to make this absolutely clear. The following broadcast contains public domain courtroom footage, commentary, and legal analysis. This content is presented under the Fair Use Doctrine as defined by 17 U.S.C. 107 and is protected by multiple Supreme Court rulings, which you see below. This stream is transformative, educational, and journalistic in nature. It includes original commentary, trial breakdowns, legal interpretation, and critical analysis, not raw redistribution. We do not claim ownership over any public domain footage, and all use is strictly within legal bounds. If you're watching this content, you're engaging in a protected, transformative experience, grounded in law, never in speculation. And if anyone has a problem with that, take it up with Campbell, Brady, Miranda, and Irvin. Remember, guys, justice always works better when we watch. So keep watching. See you in the courtroom.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. All persons having anything to do before the Honorable Beverly Canoni, the Justice of the Superior Court, now holding in Dedham, within and for the County of Norfolk. Draw near, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This court is in session. Please be seated.
22-117, the Commonwealth versus Karen Reed.
All right. Good morning again, counsel. Good morning, Ms. Reed. Good morning, jurors. I have to ask you those same three questions. Were you all able to follow the instructions and refrain from discussing this case with anyone since we were here yesterday? Yes. Everyone said yes and nodded affirmatively. Were you also able to follow the instructions and refrain from doing any independent research or investigation into this case? Yes. Everyone said yes and nodded affirmatively. Did anyone happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case since we left here yesterday? No. Everyone said no or shook their heads. Thank you very much. Can we bring Mr. Whitney back in, please? Ms. Tianetti, you can step up to the podium.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Sir, I'll remind you, you're still under oath. Thank you.
Can I proceed?
Yes.
Mr. Whitley, yesterday you testified that when Karen Reed was brought to the hospital, she didn't want to get into a hospital Johnny and she didn't want to give a urine sample. Do you recall that testimony?
I do.
It was clear to you that her reluctance to cooperate at that time was because she very much wanted to check on John's progress and status at the hospital, correct?
No, I don't believe that to be the case.
Well, you testified before the grand jury regarding this matter 3 years ago, didn't you?
I don't believe I said that she was
I
reluctant.
didn't ask you that question. You testified before the grand jury 3 years ago, didn't you?
I testified before the grand jury 3 years ago.
You were under oath then, as you're under oath today, correct?
Correct.
You swore to tell the truth.
I am telling the truth.
You swore to tell the truth in 2022 before the grand jury, did you not?
I did.
That was less than 3 months after you brought Karen Reed to the hospital, didn't you?
Yeah.
And your memory of what happened at the hospital was very good in April of 2022, right?
As good as today?
Your memory in April of 2022 was very good, wasn't it?
It was very good as it is today.
Okay, so you want to add the as it is today, despite the fact that you weren't asked that question. Is that right?
Objection.
Sustained.
All right. When questioned by Mr. Lally at the grand jury, you were asked the following question. So what, if any, interaction did you have with her, meaning Ms. Reed, at the hospital once you were there? You remember that question, right?
I do.
And your answer was, after that, I helped escort her down to, they call it the psych hallway, where they have rooms set up for psychiatric patients for their evaluation. And then she was unhappy that she wasn't able to see him, meaning John. And she kept trying to. She didn't want to get into a hospital Johnny. She didn't want to, I believe, give a urine sample. She was not, the nurses were asking her to do certain things that every patient has to do, and she was not cooperating with them. Do you remember that answer?
I do.
So 3 years ago, when you testified about this issue of giving a urine sample, you testified under oath that you believed that she didn't want to give a urine sample, correct?
Correct.
Yesterday, 3 years later, you testified with certainty that she didn't want to give them, right?
Yeah, she was giving them a hard time about having to give a urine sample.
Right. No, I'm asking you about your testimony yesterday in contrast to the grand jury, sir.
Okay.
To the extent that I ask yes or no question, I'd like yes or no answers.
So
okay?
no instructions to the witness, Ms.
Your
Giannetti.
Honor,
Ask
may the
a
witness be
question.
instructed to answer the question yes or no if it calls for a yes or no question.
Sir,
Answer.
Answer the question that's asked of you, okay?
Okay.
So go ahead, ask a question.
You testified yesterday that she didn't want to give a urine sample without saying it was your belief that she didn't want to give one, correct?
Correct.
In any case, were you aware that when she was asked to give a urine sample, that Ms. Reed had gotten her period and did not have a tampon?
I was aware she was on her period, yes.
You're also aware that when somebody is brought to the hospital for a Section 12, they have no privacy. Isn't that right?
They have medical privacy. Either the tech or the nurse would be with the patient at all times.
Okay. With them at all times, observing them at all times, correct?
So they wouldn't be, she wasn't in like a hallway open to the public.
Understood, sir. But she also, when I said privacy, what I was asking is, she was not allowed to go to the bathroom alone to give a urine sample, correct?
She was a psychiatric patient.
Right. So she would have to use the bathroom in front of hospital personnel or some medical personnel with people watching her while she was on her period with no tampon, correct?
I would understand that to be true.
All right. And you're aware that she did cooperate and eventually give a blood sample as well, correct?
I'm not aware of a blood sample, but urine sample, yes.
She did give the urine sample.
Correct.
Now, in your testimony yesterday,
of what Karen Reed may have asked you about John surviving in the snow with light clothing. You remember those questions?
John surviving in the snow with light clothing. You remember those questions?
I remember asking about not having a jacket, correct?
Now, starting at the end of the day, when I cross-examined you yesterday, I asked you about that topic, and I said to you, you mentioned something about hypothermia, that you assumed you may have been dealing with a hypothermia situation, and your answer was, well, she said that he had been out in the snow without a jacket for many hours, correct?
Correct.
But before I cross-examined you at the end of the day yesterday, you previously testified 3 times about this topic, correct?
I believe it would be the grand jury and the previous trial.
Right, and direct examination when Mr. Brennan was asking you questions before I stood up, correct?
Okay, yes.
Let's start with the first time you testified about this topic back in 2022. That was, again, less than 3 months after you had a conversation with Ms. Reed at the scene on January 29th, correct?
Correct.
Her statements and questions to you at the scene were fresh in your mind in April of 2022, correct?
Correct.
In April of 2022, before the grand jury, Mr. Lally asked you, quote, what, if any, questions did she ask you regarding hypothermia? Do you remember that question?
I do.
Your answer was, she was just wondering if he could have survived outside in the cold even though he didn't have a jacket on. Do you remember giving that answer?
I do.
Nowhere in that answer, in 2022, less than 3 months after these events, do you attribute the words, quote, many hours, end quote, in the snow to Ms. Reed, correct?
Yes, I was not
I'm not asking for an explanation, sir. I'm asking for an answer.
All right, so he was answering you, Mr.
My
Yannetti.
question called for a yes or no answer. Nowhere in your answer in 2022 do you attribute the words "many hours in the snow" to Ms. Reed. Yes or no?
No, I did not say that at that point.
Nowhere in your answer in 2022 do you testify that Ms. Reed told you he had actually been in the snow for many hours, correct?
She did at that.
Sir, I'm asking you about your testimony.
So let him answer the question.
Let me ask it again. Nowhere in your answer in 2022 did you testify that Ms. Reed told you he had actually been in the snow for many hours, correct?
In 2022, I testified that I was just told to be brief and give generalizations. She quantified many hours in the snow when we were back at the ambulance.
Let me try this again, sir.
So, Mr. Yannetti, you're just saying 2022. Get to a date and a place.
Yes, April of 2022, okay, before the grand jury. My question again, and I'm still seeking a yes or no answer from you, okay? Nowhere in your answer in April of 2022 before the grand jury did you testify under oath that Ms. Reed told you that John had actually been in the snow for many hours, correct?
Not in 2022 of April, no.
Okay. The next time you testified under oath was last year in 2024, correct?
Correct.
During that testimony, Mr. Lally asked you, oh, by the way, so 2022 is no mention of many hours, right?
I did not, and I was told to be brief on the grand jury stand.
But again, no mention of
Correct.
many hours in 2022. Okay. Now, 2024, last year, Mr. Lally asked you, so firefighter Whitley, at some point, specific to your conversations with the defendant, Ms. Reed, can you describe sort of her demeanor or any observations you made in relation to that as you were speaking with her? And your answer was yes. She was very upset. She kept asking if there was any chance. She kept asking us if we knew if the person ambulance 1 had transported was alive or dead, and we could not speak to that. She asked if somebody could be alive in the snow without a jacket for many hours, correct?
Correct.
So 2022, there was no mention of many hours. 2024, over time, now that's the first time that you mention the words many hours in your testimony regarding this case, correct?
Correct.
All right? And when you testified last year, you testified still that she was asking you a question about surviving in the snow, correct?
Correct.
So then we come to yesterday on direct examination. Do you recall that Mr. Brennan yesterday asked you, before you left, were you having any conversations with the defendant, and you answered yes? You recall that yesterday?
Is that at the hospital?
I'm asking you yesterday, do you recall Mr. Brennan asking you, before you left essentially the scene, were you having any conversations with the defendant, and your answer was yes?
You're talking about Lee, I'm just trying to make sure we're talking about the same instance. Are we talking about when we left the hospital or when we left Fairview Road?
When you were at Fairview Road, leaving Fairview Road. We're talking about the same subject of what Ms. Reed supposedly told you or asked you. Okay? Mr. Brennan went into that with you.
So on the way to, you're talking on the way to the hospital in terms of left. When we left.
Well, before you left. He meant before you left the scene.
Okay, no, I'm just trying to clarify.
Again, it's the same conversation, Mr. Whitley. I'm not trying to trick you.
Mr. Yannetti, he just asked for a point of reference. It's clear. Now go.
Understood. And Mr. Brennan said, can you share with the jury what those conversations were about? And your answer was, so we were talking, she was upset. She kept asking if there was any chance her husband could be alive, even sitting outside in the snow without any coat for many hours. Do you recall that answer that you gave yesterday on direct examination?
Yes.
And that was the first time that you mentioned that she said, supposedly, or asked supposedly, about him sitting outside in the snow, correct?
I was just using phrases generally speaking.
Not my question.
I wasn't at that point I was paraphrasing. I was not speaking verbatim to what she said.
Let's try that again. That was the first time that you mentioned that she claimed or asked that he was sitting outside, correct?
It could have been sitting, laying, being.
Let's try it a third time.
So
Was that-
just ask the question, not let's try it,
Sure.
let's try it.
Was that the first time that you testified under oath that Ms. Reed said or asked about him sitting outside?
Are you asking me to clarify whether she used the
I'm not
word
asking
sitting?
you to clarify anything. I'm asking you whether that was the first time yesterday during direct examination that you mentioned that she asked about him sitting outside.
I'm sorry. I am very confused because I'm trying to figure out if he was being outside, sitting outside.
I'm asking you about Ms. Reed's statements, sir. That's all I've been asking you about. Her
Okay.
statements to you and your testimony about her statements to you. Was yesterday on direct examination the first time that you testified under oath that Ms. Reed mentioned the words sitting outside?
I don't know.
All right.
I'm just using. She might have said laying outside, being outside, outside.
Okay, so when you testified yesterday before this jury
Yes.
that she mentioned the words sitting outside, you're now saying that that might not have been accurate, correct?
It could have been a different word.
Okay, but you didn't say it could have been a different word yesterday. You just left it as sitting outside, correct?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I said. Sitting.
All right, so now we get from, the grand jury with many hours mentioned to questions about many hours to sitting outside to let's talk about what you said on cross-examination.
I object.
Okay, the objection sustained.
Sure. On cross-examination, your words were, she said he had been out in the snow without a jacket on for many hours, correct?
She had asked if he had been outside, if there was any chance he could be alive, even though he was outside without a jacket for many hours.
So it always was a question, correct?
It was a question.
She never said what you said on cross-examination yesterday, which was she said that he had been out in the snow without a jacket on for many hours. That was not a declarative statement by Ms. Reed, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow that. Was that a declarative statement by Ms. Reed?
She asked if he could be alive without a jacket in the snow for many hours.
So again, it was a question, sir.
She asked me, and we were just trying to give her hope in terms of telling stories of hypothermic patients that could survive outside in the snow.
Okay, is there any redirect?
Briefly.
Okay.
When you were called to the grand jury, was the testimony as in-depth and as long as it is in front of this jury?
No, not even close.
When you're recounting your memories of what happened, do you memorize word for word what you've said in the past?
Objection.
As to that form, it's sustained.
When you're recounting the past, do you record your statements personally?
Objection.
I'm going to let that one. Do you record your statements?
No.
Next question.
When you testified in the grand jury, page 90, line 15, and you said the defendant told you, I'm upset if he dies, I want to die. And then you later testify last year, and you said, if my husband dies, I want to die. Do you notice the little differences between those phrases?
I do.
Is that you making up words?
No.
Is that you trying to help a case?
Objection.
As to form, that's sustained.
Are you inventing facts?
No.
Sir, when you were recounting what happened that day, are you using your best memory?
Objection.
When you were asked by the defendant about how long, or someone out in the snow without a jacket for many hours, do you remember that conversation with her?
I do.
Where were you during that conversation?
We were in the back of the ambulance.
Do you remember it distinctly?
I remember it distinctly. She was looking at me.
When you tried to give her hope and comfort and you told her stories about other situations where people, maybe children, have fallen through the ice and had hypothermia, did you have that conversation with her in trying to comfort her?
I did.
Do you remember that conversation?
I do.
Did you necessarily share those conversations with the grand jury?
I don't recall if I did or I didn't.
Did you ever write that in your report?
No.
Is that something you typically put everything in your report?
No, we do not write. But generally, we only write patient complaint, what happened, what they did, not their opinions or anything like that to what's going on.
Do you have any interest in the outcome of this case?
I do not.
How long have you been a firefighter for?
Since March of 2006, and an EMT since November of 2002.
Over 20 years.
Correct.
You said that you live near Kerry Roberts?
I do.
You've been to a block party for the kids where you've brought the fire engine down?
I do.
Objection.
I'm going to allow it.
When you're at that block party, do you ever step out and have secret meetings with Kerry Roberts trying to corroborate some conspiracy on their behalf?
No.
I'm going to allow that.
No.
Put your career on the line?
Objection.
Sister.
No further questions.
Any follow-up, Mr. Yannetti?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Firefighter Whitley, you are all set, sir.
Like to play clip 5, Your Honor?
And his mother leans over the kitchen island and says to me, "I think it looks like you got hit by a car. It looks like you got hit by a car."
All right, who's your next witness, Mr. Brennan?
Next witness is Jean Demulus.
Your Honor, can you get closer to the podium?
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You
solemnly swear the evidence you give to the court and jury in the case now hearing the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, you can speak.
Good morning.
You just scooch in close to the microphone. Thanks.
May I proceed?
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Jean Demulus. I am the general manager at CF McCarthy's in Canton.
I'm going to ask you to keep your voice up, if you would, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
You said you're the general manager at CF McCarthy's?
In Canton, yes.
In Canton. How long have you been the general manager at CF McCarthy's in Canton for?
For 6 years.
Can you briefly describe for the jury what CF McCarthy's is?
It is a restaurant and bar.
At CF McCarthy's, is there a video surveillance system inside?
Yes.
Who owns that video surveillance system?
CF McCarthy's.
Are you familiar with the video system?
Yes.
Have you ever looked at it before?
Yes.
Do you employ people to help the establishment with the video system?
No.
You maintain it on your own?
Yes.
At some point were you visited by somebody from the Massachusetts State Police?
Yes.
Were you asked whether or not they could view some of your video surveillance?
Yes.
Do you remember the date? Not the date they came to visit you, the date that they were looking for.
I believe it was January 28th, 27th, 28th of 2022.
Around that time?
Yes.
Did you allow access to the video system?
Yes.
Did you oversee that access to the video system?
Yes.
Was it a state police officer?
It was two state police detectives.
Do you remember their names?
I remember one of the detectives' names. I do not remember the other detective.
The one you remember, could you share the name?
It was Detective Buchnick, Yuri.
Detective Yuri Buchnick.
Yes.
At some point, was he allowed to download information from the surveillance system?
Yes.
Did you watch him do that?
Yes, I did.
At some point, have you been able to briefly look at some of that download?
Yes.
And does it appear to be a fair and accurate depiction of the surveillance or the area of your bar?
Yes.
Move to introduce.
Okay, there's no objection, Ms. Giannetti?
There is no objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 18, so marked.
Thank you.
Your Honor, may I play just a small portion?
Sure.
Thank you. Ma'am, I'm going to show you just some random shots from this video, but I want to know if you recognize it. Is this the inside of C.F. McCarthy's?
Yes.
I'm not asking if you have any particular knowledge or information about that now.
Looks like-
Yes.
Is this a fair and accurate depiction of what C.F. McCarthy's looks like?
Yes.
Has there been any substantive, significant changes to the inside of that establishment
No.
since this video was taken?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Gilman. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Okay.
I have no questions.
All right, Mr. Lewis, you're all set.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're upset, counsel.
Your next witness, Mr. Brennan.
Thank you. Bridget Mi.
Good morning. Good morning.
You solemnly swear the evidence you give to the court and jury in the case now hearing to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. Good morning. Good morning.
May I proceed?
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you introduce yourself to the jury, please?
My name is Bridget Mi.
Where do you work?
I work at the Waterfall Bar and Grill in Canton.
The name maybe tells us a little bit about it, but could you just share a couple lines of what the Waterfall Bar and Grill is?
It's a small family-owned business in Canton. It's in a mixed condo complex.
Are you involved in the ownership of it?
Yes.
How long have you been involved with the Waterfall Bar and Grill?
We've been there approximately 10 years.
Do you help run the establishment?
Yes, I do.
And you were running the establishment back on January 28, 2022? At some point, were you asked or visited to see if your establishment had video surveillance of the inside?
I was.
Does your establishment have video surveillance of the inside?
It does.
Do you have a camera and a server?
Do I have? Yes, I do.
Okay. Did you provide video surveillance to the Massachusetts State Police from that night, January 28, 2022?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'd like to move this in as an exhibit, please.
Okay. Ms. Giannetti?
No objection.
Thank you.
With the court's permission?
Yes.
Thank you. Ma'am, I'm going to show you just a brief clip. Okay, stop, please. Do you see that video?
I do.
Does that depict the inside of McCarthy's?
No.
I'm sorry, the waterfall?
Yes.
I'm trying to switch establishments on you. Back on January 28, 2022, does that look the way it looked then?
Yes.
Has there been any significant changes inside since then?
No.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay. All right, Ms. Mi, you.
Thank you.
Is my camera on there?
All right, your next witness, Mr. Brennan.
Commonwealth calls Mike Camarano.
Come on, can you follow me?
You solemnly swear the evidence you give the court is in the case now and hearing to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Get to stand.
Good morning.
May I?
Please.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Hi, good morning. My name is Michael Camarano.
Mr. Camarano, can I ask how old you are? I'm sorry.
Spell your last name.
Camerano.
And so if you could either move the microphone down a little bit or speak up, or maybe a combination of both, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Could I ask you how old you are?
48,
Where do you live?
Canton, Mass.
How long have you lived in Canton for?
Me and my wife have lived there for 20 years. Me and my wife have lived there for 20 years. We have 2 children.
How old are your children, sir?
My daughter is 17. My son is 14.
Did you know John O'Keefe?
Yes.
How did you know him?
I met John for the first time at his sister's they had a benefit for his sister in 2013. I met John there for the first time. And then years later, our kids got involved with sports together, and they became very close. As they became close, I became very close with John and his family.
Was your daughter close with John's niece?
Yes.
Was your son close with?
Yes.
Did you spend a lot of time together through sports and socially?
Yes, we did.
I want to take you forward to January 28th of 2022.
Okay.
Do you remember that day?
Yes.
Had you, without any discussion of what might have been said, did you have any discussions with John that day?
Yes.
Did you have a plan?
Yes, we were communicating.
At some point, did you decide that you were going to spend some time or go meet John?
Yes. That Friday, my daughter and his daughter, they got acceptance letters to school. So we wanted to get them together so they could enjoy the time together. And, just, go over like how it would be so much fun, something new, different. Yeah, so we were going to meet up after I got out of work.
Was your daughter planning to go to a new school?
Yes.
Where?
Bishop Fan,
And how about his niece?
same.
They both got accepted to
They
the
both
same
got
school?
accepted to the same school.
Was it a celebratory move?
Yes.
Did you have a plan to bring the children together so they could celebrate?
Yes, we did.
And then separately you were going to meet John and celebrate?
Correct.
Okay. Where did you drop your daughter off?
I dropped my daughter off at John. I went into John's. I was at the house with John and the girls, and we had a little celebration. Talked about how nice it's going to be, fun, change, different, meet new people.
And you celebrated at John's house before you went out?
Correct.
After the celebration with your children, did you and John leave?
Yes.
During that celebration, was there anybody there other than you, John, and your two daughters?
No. No. Karen was not there.
Was there anybody else there?
No, just the two girls, myself and John.
What was the weather like that night?
It was cold. It was not snowing yet.
Was there an expectation for
Yes,
the
there's
next
an
morning?
yes,
And what was that?
that there was going to be a big snowstorm coming in.
A storm was coming.
Yes.
When you left, did you leave in a separate car than John, or did you leave together?
No, we left together. John got in my car, and we were leaving. We're going to leave.
Where were the girls?
The girls are in the house, stayed in the house.
They were staying at John's house?
Yes, correct.
Where did you go?
We went to C.F. McCarthy's.
When you got there, did you know anybody who was there other than you and John?
At that time, no.
Did you spend time at C.F. McCarthy's?
Yes.
Were you drinking?
Yes.
Was John drinking?
Yes.
Alcohol?
Yes.
How long were you there for?
A couple hours.
While you were there, did anybody come and meet you that you knew?
Yes.
Who?
A friend, and then Karen came in.
The friend?
Yes.
What was the friend's name?
Kurt.
And then how long after you first got there was it that the defendant arrived?
I would like to say within an hour, so not 100% sure.
You said back home it was a celebratory mood. Was it still a celebratory mood at McCarthy's?
Yes.
And when the defendant arrived, did she spend time with you and John?
I've talked briefly to her, and her and John were mostly talking.
Okay. You didn't see any issues?
No.
It was a normal night?
Seemed to be, yes.
As far as you could see?
Yes.
And you saw John drinking?
Yes.
Did you see the defendant drinking?
I saw her with a glass, yes.
Okay. Did you leave at the same time that John left?
No, I did not.
When you left, was John still at the establishment?
Yes.
When you left, was the defendant still with him?
Yes.
Why did you leave?
I left because I got a phone call. My son was playing hockey in the backyard, and he got hit with a stick and lost his tooth.
Oh. Where did you go?
I went to my son's friend's house.
Do you know about what time that was when you went to see your son?
I would like to say 9:30, between 9:30 and 10.
You didn't go back to McCarthy's that night, did you?
No, I did not.
After you helped your son, where did you go next?
I went to pick up my daughter, Madeline,
Did you go?
at John's house.
Did you go in John's house?
No, I did not.
When you got to John's house, did your daughter come out?
No. We went to the side door
Okay.
and rang the doorbell.
And then what happened?
And then my daughter came to the door.
Where'd you go?
From there, we left and went home.
When you went home, had the weather changed at all?
It was cool. It might have been flurrying at that time.
No accumulation?
No.
You got home?
Yes.
Did you do anything significant when you got home?
Put the kids to bed, my son, and no, I went to bed.
What's the next thing you remember happening?
Waking up to, I missed some phone calls
Who were the missed phone calls from?
from my wife and Karen.
What did you do?
I called my wife.
After speaking to your wife, what did you do?
I got in my car and drove to John's house.
About what time was this?
In between maybe 5 and 6 a.m.
What was your mood at that point?
I was panicked
Why did you go to John's house?
because I went to get Kaylee.
Did you know if she was alone?
Yes,
How long did it take you to get to John's house?
maybe 5-7 minutes.
When you get to John's house, what do you see?
I pull in the driveway. I see that the garage door is open. I go in through the garage door. I don't know if Kaylee was standing there, if the door, she came out the door, and I asked her, if she needed anything, she could get in my car and stay warm.
When you first saw Kaylee, what did she look like?
She looked distraught.
Did you try to help her?
Well, I think I just said everything will be okay.
Did she come with you?
Yes,
Where are you going?
to my house.
So what happens?
So we go to my house, and my daughter's up, and the two girls they were hanging downstairs, just hanging out, just being kids. And then, I don't know, a couple hours later, maybe, Paul called me and asked me to bring Kaylee home.
Did you know anything at that point?
I did, yes.
You did or didn't?
At that point, I did when Paul had told me.
So what do you do?
Asked Madeline and Kaylee if I'd say, Madeline, we come for the ride. I don't say anything to Kaylee, and we get in the car, and I start heading back to John's house.
And you didn't say anything to Kaylee?
No, I didn't. I just said everything will be all right. She had a feeling.
Why do you say that?
She didn't want to go home.
So what happens next?
So I pull in the driveway, and I remember Paul and Papa standing. I think they were standing at the side door, and we just embraced.
Did you stay?
No, not long. No.
Did you go back?
I was to the house. I went back to my house.
Did you go back to John's house?
I did the next day. Yes, I was there.
When you went back, were there people there?
Yes,
Many?
there was people coming and going.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Camarano.
Good morning.
This is quite painful for you to remember the events of January 28th, is it not?
Yes,
You were very close with your friend John O'Keefe, correct?
I was close with them. Yes,
And you actually met Karen Reed through John, correct?
correct.
After meeting Karen, you spent a good amount of time with both Karen and John, correct?
Correct.
As of January 28th of 2022, you had known Karen for maybe about a year or so,
Sounds correct.
and you'd see them especially on Fridays, correct?
Correct.
That would be sort of the day that you get together with both of them often?
Yes.
And of course, your children spent a lot of time with John and Karen, right?
Correct.
You entrusted both Karen and John with your kids.
Yes.
Sometimes your kids would even go on vacation with Karen and John, right?
They did go to the Cape, yes.
Sometimes you'd see Karen without John at your house or on a ball field.
Correct.
And your daughter in particular would sometimes spend time with just Karen without John, correct?
Correct.
Your daughter would sometimes go over to Karen's house in Mansfield when she lived there, correct?
Correct.
And obviously when your daughter would go to Karen's house in Mansfield, Karen would be the one in charge of caring for her, correct?
Correct.
And you were fine with that because you liked and you trusted Karen, right?
Correct.
And in your view, Karen was very good with kids, right?
Correct.
But you also had the opportunity to see Karen and John together, right?
Yes.
You saw how they interacted with each other over that year period that you knew Karen?
Yes.
You saw how they got along?
Yes.
And you never observed any arguments or bickering, correct?
I mean, they argued and bickered.
You had previously testified that you wouldn't even call it arguing, you'd just call it banter, right?
Yes, I mean, he would, I mean, no, he would get upset or like over if she bought expensive things for the kids.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
We will get to that. That would be the one thing that John would complain about, Karen buying like very nice things for his niece and nephew, right?
Correct.
Or he'd complain if, Karen was taking his niece and other girls to get their nails done, like extravagances like that.
Correct.
And one specific memory you have is when Karen bought his niece a very expensive sweater, right?
Correct.
And you recall John telling you that he wished that she hadn't done that because he considered that to be spoiling the girl, correct?
Yes.
But it was very clear to you from your observations that Karen really, really liked John. I'm sorry, John really, really liked Karen, right?
Sustained.
He certainly never told you or even suggested he was thinking about or planning to break up with Karen, right?
No.
Okay, so with regard to that Friday night, January 28th, sir, the plan was for you and John to go to McCarthy's to have some drinks because there was a storm coming in, correct? And because of the celebration of the girls getting into Bishop Fen?
Well, yeah, we were going out. It wasn't a continuation of the celebration of the girls. We were going out to have a few beers as guys.
Okay. And when you were leaving the house, John asked you to move your car, right?
Correct.
Where was your car when John asked you to move it that night?
Actually, I backed up my car. We were leaving the driveway, and John asked me to stop so he could move his car.
I see. And he wanted you to move your car because of the storm coming in, and he wanted Karen to be able to pull her car into the garage, right?
Correct.
And that was really thoughtful of him, wasn't it?
Yes, extremely.
And it showed you that he was being chivalrous toward Karen that night, right?
Yes.
He didn't want Karen to be out in the heavy snow later when she returned to his house during the expected blizzard, right?
Sustained.
You took from that there was an expectation that Karen would be coming back to his house, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
You had no inkling that day that anything was wrong between Karen and John, correct?
No.
Everything seemed fine between the two of them, right?
Yes, he did mention though that night that he didn't understand why Karen had a plumber go to the house.
Because he had somebody that could have done that work instead of paying for the plumber, right?
Well, yes.
Okay. But in any case, the plan was for Karen to meet up with the two of you, right?
Yes.
And she did show up to McCarthy's at about 8:30 p.m. or so?
Yes, I guess, if that's the time.
And you saw an affection...
I'm sorry, what was the answer that you said?
If that was the time, I'm not sure about the timeline.
Okay. It was sometime after you'd
Yes.
gotten there. Right.
Correct.
But you do remember when Karen arrived, there was an affectionate greeting between John and Karen, right?
Yes.
You saw them kiss, right?
Yes.
You saw John put his arm around Karen,
Correct.
and you saw that Karen sort of nestled into his embrace.
Correct.
And when she did that, that's when he kissed her, correct?
Yes.
And they seemed happy to see each other, did they not?
They did.
That night they were affectionate,
Yes.
laughing,
Yes.
happy,
Yes.
like a normal couple.
Yes.
No arguments.
No.
You witnessed no bickering, no tension, correct?
No.
And during the month before John's passing, that January of 2022, you observed their relationship in your presence to be normal, caring, and affectionate, right?
Yes.
Thank you very much, sir.
You were asked a number of questions about the relationship between John and Karen that night. Do you know what was going on behind closed doors other than what you saw?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No.
Do you know whether or not they texted each other that day?
No. That day, no.
Do you know whether or not there was any arguments that day?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Not to my. No. I don't know if they were. I don't know if they were arguing over the plumber situation.
Do you know if there's any vulgarities that day?
No.
Do you know if there's any vulgarities that night?
No, not to my knowledge.
Do you know whether or not John was trying to end the relationship with Miss Reed?
Objection.
Do you know that, sir?
No.
Next question.
Do you know if there was any jealousy in that relationship?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
I mean, I mean, Karen wouldn't let, I mean, they did everything together, a lot of things together, and I thought at times, yeah, you could see, you know, she didn't want other women around John. I don't know, not at that, but.
Thank you.
Any follow-up?
Nothing further.
All right, Mr. Camarano, you're all set, sir. I'll see counsel at sidebar for just a minute, please. Please.
I'm going to recall Nick Garino.
Okay.
Sir, you can have a seat. I'll remind you you're still in your room.
Or stand, however you're most comfortable today. Just do whatever you need to do, okay?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, everyone.
Sir, yesterday we talked about downloading phones and making what you called extractions.
Yes.
And from that data, you could create different types of reports.
So have Detective Guarino say his name again, please.
I'm sorry. Again, for the record, could you introduce yourself to the jury and spell your last name for the record?
Yeah. Good morning. My name is Nicholas Guarino, Guarino.
Thank you.
Sir, you mentioned yesterday that you downloaded a number of phones, or you were involved in the process of downloading a number of phones.
That's correct.
You explained to us that after you have the data analyzed, you can pinpoint certain items that you may want to put in a document.
Yes, so the extractions into a program of our choosing, Cellbrite is the most commonly used, and then we can take call logs or text messages, any information that the investigator is looking for.
When you downloaded Mr. O'Keefe's phone and you downloaded the defendant's phone, did you try to create, or did you create a report through Cellbrite, the software, that would show you all of Mr. O'Keefe's call logs?
Yes, I did.
And when I use the term call logs, what does that mean?
The call logs are the calls that the phone receives.
How do you create a report from Cellbrite? Can you just walk us through that process briefly?
Yep, so in the program, you can go in and select the calls from it and export it into different formats, PDF, XML, HTML, or you can create a portable case and extract them all as a portable case that we would see on my computer.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Showing you a document of Mr. O'Keefe's call logs. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what is it?
It is the call logs. Just want to make sure it's between John O'Keefe and the defendant from, just want to see the dates, the 28th, January 20th, 2022 to January 29th, 2022.
Would this contain all the phone calls from his phone data, the calls between those two parties that night?
Yes, that's what I created.
I'd like to move this as an exhibit, please.
Okay.
If I could, Your Honor, just want to compare to make sure we have the same.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Thank you, Mr. Brennan.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. Consent.
Okay.
No objection.
You captured all of the phone calls between two parties on that last document. Can you also do that with chats?
Yes, that is true.
And did you do that in this case?
Yes, I did.
Did you create a document of chats between the phones of the defendant and Mr. O'Keefe for after midnight, for the evening hours of January 29, 2002?
Yes, I did.
May I approach?
Yes.
I'm good.
You recognize that document, sir?
Yes, I do.
And can you tell us what that is.
These are the texts from the defendant to John O'Keefe. Yes.
For January 29th, 2022?
Yes, that's correct. I'm sorry.
I'd move this as an exhibit, Your Honor.
Okay,
No objection, Your Honor.
thank you.
Exhibit 24.
Did you identify or specify chat messages between John O'Keefe and a person named Jen McCabe?
Yes, I did.
Did you create a Cellbrite report?
Yes, I did.
May I approach?
Yes.
Can we have just a brief moment, please?
It's sidebar?
No, no.
Just the two of them?
Compare what we have.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. You're welcome.
Sir, I'm handing you a document. Do you recognize it?
Yes. This is the text messages between John O'Keefe and Jen McCabe on 29th on January 29th, 2022.
And this is through a search of Cellbrite, you match their data, pull up all of their conversations.
Yes, that's
By
correct.
chat.
Yes.
Okay. I'd move to introduce this, please, Your Honor.
No objection, Your Honor.
25.
Similarly to the chats, did you do the same with calls between Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. McCabe?
Yes, I did.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Showing you a document, sir. Do you recognize that document?
Yes, this is the call log between John O'Keefe and Jen McCabe for, just want to make sure I get all the dates correct, just for January 29th, 2022.
I think this is evidence, Your Honor.
Okay.
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 26.
Did you do a file extraction and a report on all chats between the phones of John O'Keefe and the defendant for a period of time?
Yes, I did.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Handing you a document. Do you recognize that document?
Yes, this is the text messages between John O'Keefe and the defendant from January 28th to January 29th, 2022.
Your Honor, move this into evidence.
Okay. Mr. Alessi?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
Exhibit 27.
Did you have an opportunity to make a report from some of the data from the defendant's phone from January 29, 2022?
What are you referring? I did make some reports from the defendant's phone.
What's a call log report?
Again, the call log report is the calls that the party makes to another phone. So it's going to show everyone they've called or attempted to call.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Sir, I'm going to ask you to take a look at this document. Do you recognize it?
Yes.
And could you tell the jury what it is?
It's the call log from the defendant's phone for January 29th, 2022. It looks like everyone she called.
Introduce this as an exhibit, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you.
What we just introduced into evidence is the entire call log of calls to anybody and everybody to and from for that period of time.
Yes.
That's fair to say?
Yes, that's correct.
And then can you further isolate calls between just two parties?
Yes, you can. You can search by phone number or name.
And did you do that with the defendant's records for some parties?
Yes, I did.
Did you isolate phone calls between the defendant and Ms. McCabe for the evening of January 29, 2022?
Yes, I did.
May I approach?
Yes.
Guys, take a look at this document. Do you recognize it?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
It's the phone calls from the defendant and Jennifer McCabe, January 29, 2022.
Thank you. Your Honor, I'd like to move this into evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
Did you isolate calls between the defendant and Ms. Roberts for the night of January 29, 22?
Yes, I did.
Can I see the last exhibit, please? Thank you, sir. I'd ask you to take a look at that document. Do you recognize it?
Yes, I do.
Could you share with the jury what it is?
Yep. It's the call logs between the defendant and Carrie Roberts for January 29th, 2022. Yes.
And that's a report you created?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I move this into evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have an opportunity to isolate and produce a report for all chats between the defendant and Ms. Roberts for the night of January 29, 2022?
Yes, I did.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Sir, I'm handing you a document. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And could you share with the jury what that is?
This is text messages between the defendant and Carrie Roberts on January 29th, 2022.
Thank you. I would move this into evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay. Jurors, this is the way we have to put evidence in cases in Massachusetts, okay?
Sir, do you have an opportunity to identify a text message or a chat between the defendant and a person by the name of Ingrid on the morning of January 29th, 2022?
Yes, I did.
May I approach?
Yes.
Yes.
Could you tell the jury what that is?
Yes, this is a text conversation between the defendant and looks like a group chat between Ingrid Curtis and Bill Curtis.
Did you make that report?
Yes, this is on January 29, 2022.
Thank you. And move this into evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Exhibit 32.
If this is a good time, if Your Honor would permit.
Okay. Jurors, what we're going to do is we will take our morning recess now, and we'll take 20 minutes to a half an hour, and we'll see you then.
jury, please?
They're on the way, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you.
All rise for the court, please. Jury's entering. Court's back in session. You may be seated.
All right, Mr. Brennan, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. Just a few more items I'd like you to recognize. Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Showing you an envelope. Do you know what's in that envelope?
Yes, it's the raw data extraction of John O'Keefe's cell phone.
Your Honor, I'd ask it to be marked simply for identification, please.
Okay. Exhibit A, identification. Thank you.
Second folder.
Yes, it's the raw data extraction of Jen McCabe's cell phone that I created.
Thank you, sir. Your Honor, I'd ask it to be marked for identification as well.
All right. Exhibit B for identification. Thank you.
Trooper, you shared with us that you downloaded the extraction of the phones that you identified and you made reports based on specific identified features. For example, a conversation between two people.
Yes, well, I didn't do the extraction of Jen's phone, but I made those reports with the PDFs from the data extraction.
Relative to Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant's phones, you created a document that provided us the phone calls between them on January 29th?
Yes, that's correct.
And separately, you also provided a document that included all of the chats or text messages between John O'Keefe and the defendant on January 29, 2022.
Yes, it also included the 28th.
Thank you.
Yes.
And in that compilation, did you put together or do you create or review a PowerPoint of those?
Yes, I did.
And what was the point of that?
Just to show the texts and calls in a chronological order, because that way you're not looking at two different documents trying to compare and contrast the calls to text messages when each is coming in.
And did you begin that PowerPoint presentation with a call at 2:16:10 on January 28, 2022?
Yes, that's correct.
And are there additional chats or text messages earlier that morning?
Yes, there's a handful starting around 9:45 a.m.
May I
Yes.
approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Handing you a folder, sir. Could you take a look at it? Let us know if you recognize what's in it.
Yes. So this is the bulk of this is the PowerPoint calls and text messages, and at the beginning there's the messages from before 2:16 in the morning.
I'd like to introduce this as an exhibit, Your Honor.
Okay.
No objection, Your Honor.
Great, thank you.
With court permission, I'd ask the witness to read the text messages from the morning hours, and then we begin the PowerPoint presentation.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Do you have a hard copy of those for me?
It was provided. I'll see if we have another copy if you don't have it.
All right, I have, it's in here, the pre-morning hours, the ones that we discussed at Sidebar. If you don't have them,
The defense has a copy for you, Your Honor.
thank you.
Madam? I'm sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Little.
May we begin, Your Honor?
Please.
Could you first read the text messages from that morning to the jury?
Yes. Apologize if I misspelled things or state things. Start time, all right. It's a little different than the format I had before. All right, this is from Karen Reed to John O'Keefe. You have really hurt me this time. This was sent at 9:49:20 a.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, I'm sorry, this has been an issue with me for 8 years. It physically hurts me to see everyone else in their life do things for them, and I'm forced to always be the bad guy. This is sent at 10:02:56 a.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I'm not the same as everyone else. Most of the time I try to do what is healthy/smart for them. More importantly, I try to support you in what you need. You just lashed out at me and said terrible things. I don't know how you've gotten to this point with me when I'm just trying my hardest. You made your point and continue to beat me down. I have a lot going on too. Physically, I am falling apart and trying to get answers and help. 10:09:49 a.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I am just your girlfriend. I am not a perfect parent. I'm trying very hard and sometimes treat them - nothing like I used to. 10:46 a.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, I know, I'm sorry for lashing out. I'm just hurting and struggle daily with them. Always feel like I'm failing at this parenting thing. I wasn't built for this. 10:12 a.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, Kaylee isn't perfect, but everything wonderful about her is because of you. 12:21:36 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, an emoji is sent at 12:21:59 on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, it's true, I know she's her mother's daughter, but she wouldn't be so bright and successful if she lived with anyone else. 12:22:51 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, wow, Kristen just sent 2 back-to-back messages to not lose your faith in the kids. 12:31:28 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, or in yourself, at 12:31:41 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, there's 2 emojis sent at 12:32:06 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, no, and there's 2 emojis. Life can pick you up sometimes. Please be happy with them and put away your frustrations for the rest of the day. And be so proud of yourself, JJ. That's 12:33:35 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, that's what bothers me more than anything. Should have sent Peg's or Sarah's W-2s. We are all equal guardians. 1:18:21 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, maybe you can call someone. 1:21:55 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, like who? 1:46:42 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, what time are you coming here? 1:47:38 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, it's another emoji sent, 2:05:30 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I don't know what time, feel kind of out of it, just trying to clear my head, 2:06:07 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, he writes, okay, 2:06:25 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, text me when you guys settle in later, 2:06:44 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, sure, 2:06:58 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to, oh, then it's cut off, yes, sir.
Yeah. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
That must be where the, so, sorry.
Would it be helpful if I take it out of the binder?
I believe it, yeah, it goes to the next one, so I'll start. Yeah, sorry.
With the court's permission, we'll begin the PowerPoint.
Yes.
Should I
At your
do this
leisure.
first? Okay. The phone calls, text messages. And then we'll start with the first slide. This is from the defendant to John O'Keefe. I feel pretty shitty about how this morning went down. I know you said sorry, but it really stung, especially when I've been trying pretty hard lately. I feel like a loser turning around, just coming back over after everything you said. 2:16, 10 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, not sure what you want me to do. I said I'm sorry and I was out of line. If you prefer to stay home, I totally get it. 2:17, 16 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, things in my own life have been difficult too, you know. 2:17, 33 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, I know. 2:17, 40 p.m. on the 28th. At 2:17:45 p.m., the defendant calls John. The phone call is answered and they speak for 2 minutes, 22 seconds. 2:23:02 p.m., the defendant calls John. That's again answered at 10, and they speak for 1 minute, 2 seconds. At 2:24:17 p.m., the defendant calls John and the call is rejected. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, tell me if you're interested in someone else. Can't think of any other reason you've been like this. 2:25:18 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, nope. 2:25:33 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, things haven't been great between us for a while. Ever consider that? 2:26:03 p.m. on the 28th. At 2:28:40 p.m., the defendant calls John. That call is rejected.
Mr. Greeno, can you explain to us the difference between not answered and rejected?
Yes, so if the call is not answered, that means the call rang out and goes to voicemail. If the call is rejected, that is someone actively hitting the send to voicemail button to disable the call to stop it from ringing. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, kids are here, not in the mood to talk. 2:29:03 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, so you're not into it anymore. That's fine, but I don't want to keep trying and you keep treating me like this. 2:29:12 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I'm trying to hug and kiss you this morning and you whack me in the face with a pillow. 2:29:59 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, last night you're basically like, yeah, what about when we talk about the future? So why don't you just admit you're not into so much anymore? 2:30:23 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, not how it went down, but okay. 2:30:26 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, can you please admit your head is out of the game with us? 2:30:52 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, sick of always arguing and fighting. It's been weekly for several months now. So yeah, I'm not as quick to jump back into being lovey-dovey as you apparently. 2:32:28 p.m. on the 28th. At 2:32:47 p.m., the defendant calls John. That call is rejected. John O'Keefe to the defendant, OMG, stop calling. 2:32:54 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, then why would you start with me this morning? 2:32:58 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, you're setting me up to fail. 2:33:05 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, you started a number of fights from your end. 2:33:26 p.m. on the 28th. And John O'Keefe to the defendant, I've explained it a few times already, not doing it again. 2:33:31 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, so you're not into this anymore. 2:33:41 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, not into fighting all the time, correct. 2:34:03 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, if you tell me you're interested in someone else, you will never hear from me again. You can have all the space in the world. 2:34:11 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, he sends an emoji. 2:34:19 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, then stop starting with me, 2:34:20 p.m. on the 28th. 2:34:29 p.m., the defendant calls John. He rejects the call. John O'Keefe to the defendant, I'm not answering, stop calling, 2:34:42 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, can you please answer after how you treated me earlier? 2:34:43 p.m. on the 28th. 2:34:54 p.m., the defendant calls John. That's rejected. John O'Keefe to the defendant, Kaylee is right here, 2:35:02 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, you start a rager with me out of nowhere and then tell me you're sick of fighting with me, 2:35:41 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, I'm going to grab a drink in a bit, 2:38:14 p.m. on the 28th. 2:38:42 p.m., the defendant calls John. That call is rejected. The defendant to John O'Keefe, can you please answer? 2:38:52 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, no, Karen, not sure why you need to announce that you're going, not sure why you need to announce that you're grabbing a drink, but have fun. 2:39:46 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, seeing if you want to meet me later, 2:40:22 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, can you please call me? 2:40:32 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, have to take them to the doctor, he has practice, 2:40:55 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, yeah, 5 minutes, 2:41:17 p.m. on the 28th. At 2:43:01 p.m., the defendant calls John. It's not answered. At 2:43:45 p.m., the defendant calls John. The call is rejected. John O'Keefe to the defendant, my father just walked in, 2:43:58 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, okay, can you please call me for 2 minutes? 2:44:14 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, not right now, 2:44:23 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, I'm there when anyone else needs me, 2:44:26 p.m. on the 28th. At 2:45:32 p.m., the defendant calls John. The call is rejected. The defendant calls Mr. O'Keefe. Yes, John, you gave me utter grief this morning. I'd like you to call me for amends. 2:46:16 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, I've been trying to get over the hump with is arguing, and now you tell me you're not into doing things, and you don't want to fight weekly, but fly off the handle at 8 a.m. with me, like you're setting me up to fail. 2:47:08 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, I've been dealing with my own personal crisis over things I have zero control over. I'd like to lean on you too sometimes. Instead, I just hear everything I've done wrong. 2:48:34 p.m. on the 28th. At 2:56 p.m., the defendant calls John. The call is rejected. At 2:51:13 p.m., the defendant calls John. It's rejected. 2:52:37 p.m., John calls the defendant. It's not answered. At 2:53:56, the defendant calls John. Again, not answered. The defendant, John O'Keefe, you seriously cannot pick up the phone for 2 seconds. 2:54:13 p.m. 2:58:05 p.m., the defendant calls John. It's rejected. At 2:59:13, John calls the defendant. The call is answered and they speak for 4 minutes, 59 seconds. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, why don't you meet me at Hillside at 4:30/5, 3:08:55 p.m. John O'Keefe to the defendant sends an emoji at 3:10:08 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, or whenever you get, everyone settled, 3:10:35 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, like I said, doctor now, and he has practice till 6. If you want to go start drinking, then go for it. 3:36:21 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I didn't know the times of his practice. 3:36:40 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I just want to give you space at the house without me there. So rather meet you out than meet at the house. 3:37:01 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, yeah, well now there's a 72-year-old taking up shop on my couch. 3:37:36 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, yeah, that too. 3:37:46 p.m. 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, is he going to Collins? 3:38:23 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, not tonight. 3:38:32 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, so do you plan on going out tonight? 3:39:01 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, Karen, I don't know. 3:39:17 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, you're like jonesing to drink, so go. 3:39:43 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, okay, well after how this morning went down, I don't think I need to be back over there with you get frustrated at how I am with the kids. Has nothing to do with drinking. 3:40 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I am paranoid now that everything I do with them is problematic. So rather see you for a minute without it, kids around. 3:40:24 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, what's your plan at 4:47:16 p.m. on the 28th? From the defendant to John O'Keefe, don't have one. 4:50:09 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, so still home. 4:50:26 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, yes. 4:50:45 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, we just got home, waiting to see what Papa decides here, or else I have to get Patrick at 6. 4:59:45 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant, John O'Keefe, okay. 5:01:55 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, so are you staying home or coming here? 5:02:23 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, waiting to see what you end up doing. I don't want to hang out at the house too much, like I said. 5:03:40 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I think it's clear me around the kids, I think it's clear me around with the kids around is slowly killing our relationship, and our relationship is much more important to me. 5:04:16 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, well, there's a blizzard coming, so we'll be inside all weekend. 5:04:19 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, it will be over by noon tomorrow. 5:04:44 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, don't think so. 5:05:27 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, I don't want to keep having this constant conflict of the dynamic of the four of us. The harder I try, the more it kills our relationship as a couple. It feels like utter shit to be in that position. Rather just meet you out for drinks when you figure out what your night looks like. 5:06:45 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, well, I have no idea what's going on, so do what you want. 5:07:34 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, need to figure out what everyone here is doing. All I know now is Madeline is coming over. No clue about Patrick yet, or if Papa is planning on hanging it for a few more hours. 5:09:29 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, okay, well, when you know the story, and if you want me to come up, let me know. 5:12:36 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, no, Karen, you decide what you want to do. 5:13:18 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I know your heart isn't in this anymore. I felt it for a while and especially lately. I'm willing to try more, but not if you approaching the point of indifference. If you want me to come up and you can head out for a while, then say so when you know what your father is doing. 5:14:23 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, you come up and I head out, really? Emoji. 5:15:48. John O'Keefe to the defendant, I've told you already, I don't bounce back as quickly as you do after we have a battle. 5:16:52 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, no, head out together with an emoji. 5:17:49 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, or meet out. 5:17:54 on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, gonna send Patrick to Collins tonight. They're picking him up around 7. Mike may hang out too when he brings Matt over. So why don't you just come over? 5:19:42 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, Mike doesn't want to go out for a bit. 5:20:20 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I would like to, been a shit day from the jump. 5:20:33 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, probably 5:20:39 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, I just got sober an hour ago. 5:20:56 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I'll text you, hang with Mike for a few. I don't need to butt in. Text me if/when you think you may head out. 5:25:12 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, can you send me Tim Zoll's contact info, please? 5:26:38 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, I paid the last bill. 5:27:08 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, you didn't have to do that, thanks. 5:27:43 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, are you really not going to accept my friend request? 5:32:33 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, an emoji on what, FB? 5:33:01 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, yeah, we've been going out for 2 years. 5:33:20 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, I haven't gone on. You defriended me over a year ago, I believe. 5:33:48 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, Kerry texted that they're headed out in a bit. 6:05:29 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, okay, 6:14:55 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, she's going to let me know where. 6:17:51 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, so you're going to meet them. 6:18:12 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, just presenting it as an option. Wouldn't mind hanging out with them for a drink. 6:19 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, is Mike over? 6:27:26 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, yes, 6:29:45 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, sounds you're like good with getting together tonight. 6:31:32 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, was hoping after this morning you'd be interested in smoothing things over with me. 6:32:24 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, told you to come over, but you insisted on meeting me out somewhere. 6:33:44 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, Mike is a little off with me for a while now. I've said that multiple times. 6:34:34 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to Karen, the defendant, time to get over it, Karen. He's fine. He was fine the other night when he came by. 6:38:09 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, yeah, wouldn't mind hanging out with other people, like another female too. 6:39:09 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, where are you meeting them? 6:39:28 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I don't have plans with them. She just said they're headed out in a bit and will text when they land somewhere. 6:39:52 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, if you want to go out with Mike solo, that's fine. Just let me know. 6:40:17 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, I already told you what you should do. Not going to keep doing this. 6:41:07 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I asked to let me know if you guys are going to head out. I haven't been out for drinks this week and had a shit week and a shit day. And I dread Kaylee or Pat is going to get chatty with me the second I walk in, and that is going to irritate you. 6:43:21 on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, Pat is leaving, Kay is with Mad Cam. 6:44:02 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, I'll text Chris then. 6:46:44 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, we're headed out shortly. What's your plan, Karen? 7:06:13 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, do you want me to join or no? 7:06:37 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, yes, wasn't sure if you were meeting the Currans. 7:07:04 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, they are not out drinking yet. 7:07:40 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, where are you headed? 7:09:22 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, trying to decide maybe McCarthy's. 7:14:48 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, okay then, let me know where you decide. I'm still down in Enfield. 7:21:50 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, text me when you leave. Still waiting on McKinney's. 7:22:28 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I'm having issues with my hot water, so had to text someone to take a look. 7:24:11 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, an emoji, you trying to piss me off. 7:25:35 on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, hope your plumber buddy that you texted is hot. 7:26:24 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, nope, my shower only got lukewarm and now my sink won't run hot at all. The plumber I used is right down the road. 7:26:27 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I turned that temp thing in the basement all the way up. 7:26:52 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, check the hot water heater and see if it's leaking. 7:26:52 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant to John O'Keefe, it's not. 7:26:59 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, don't do that. 7:27:01 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, is the pilot lit? 7:27:08 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I was trying to get my shower hot. 7:27:12 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, yes, 7:27:14 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, don't turn it up. Don't turn it all the way up. 7:27:26 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, it will burn out. 7:27:32 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I had this issue twice before and it wasn't a disaster. I just can't remember what the cause was. 7:27:41 on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, just turn it back to where it was and get over here. 7:28:08 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I don't want to come home in a blizzard and then really be up shit creek. 7:28:53 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, so you're going home tonight. 7:29:18 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, or tomorrow or whenever. I've had a chill all day since my shower. 7:29:45 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, it's going to snow all day tomorrow, no driving. 7:30:05 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, we're headed to McCarthy's. 7:41:29 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, okay, let me know if you end up leaving. 7:41:57 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, why? Now you're not coming. 7:42:27 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I'm waiting for the plumber. I actually think he's in the driveway. 7:42:56 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, we're taking Mike's car, so I'm relying on you for a ride home if he leaves. 7:43:10 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, he's not going home after. 7:43:27 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, 8 o'clock on a Friday, emoji. 7:43:31 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, he may have to get Michael. 7:43:46 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, you have a plumber coming over at 8. Knowing me and Papa could have handled it. Good luck. 7:44:36 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I have always told you I will not put either of you out of your way the way everyone else in your life does. I knew it wasn't working right when you were at the doctor's with Kaylee, and I knew neither of you could get here. And this guy, Richie, fixed it last time, whatever it was. He was supposed to be here at 5, 7:48:01 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, if it's not a quick fix, I'll tell him to forget it. 7:48:20 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, if you need a new water heater, don't let him do it. 7:55:04 p.m. on the 28th. The defendant is from the defendant to John O'Keefe. He's here now. If it's not quick, I'm not doing it. I just want to make sure nothing is wrong / will go wrong with when I'm not home. 7:55:44 on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, he's not a scammer. Half the quick stuff he doesn't even charge me for. 7:56:06 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, he just put the toilet seats on crooked. 7:56:28 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, status, 8:09:02 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, still here with an emoji, 8:09:18 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, said he's got to go to HD and probably be back mañana. 8:23:56 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, so 8:24:43 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, an emoji, 8:25:02 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, just trying to figure out if I need to be here, 8:25:51 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, what does it need, 8:26:01 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I don't know. He showed me some pieces that was all rusted, with an emoji. I don't understand half this stuff, 8:26:42 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, on the water heater, 8:26:59 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, yes, 8:27:08 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, tell him to leave it. I'll take care of it Sunday or Monday, 8:28:30 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, no, it's okay. I can either meet him here or just shut off the alarm, 8:28:52 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, he used to work here while I was at work, 8:29:02 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, does he realize it will be whiteout conditions tomorrow a.m., 8:29:32 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, yeah, but he lives right down the road, 8:29:47 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, Karen, this storm is going to be intense, can't drive, 8:30:19 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, okay, well, if he can't, he can't, 8:30:36 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, I'll do it Monday, 8:30:56 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I better not still have this problem on Monday, 8:31:22 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, you plan on being there, 8:31:43 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I'd to know I can take a hot shower there here if I need to, 8:32:14 p.m. on the 28th. Figured you'd be, from John O'Keefe to the defendant, figured you'd be in Canton till Monday, 8:32:32 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, I'm getting off my phone. Let me know what you're doing, 8:32:54 p.m. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I think the four of us together is toxic to this relationship. Would like to limit it, 8:33:16 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, you said so yourself for probably a year now, 8:33:52 p.m. on the 28th. John O'Keefe to the defendant, blizzard tomorrow, nobody is going anywhere, 8:33:56 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, maybe I'll come back late tonight. Bad snow is in the early a.m., 8:35:14 p.m. on the 28th. From the defendant to John O'Keefe, I'll head up there in a few min. Let me know if you leave, 8:35:26 p.m. on the 28th. From John O'Keefe to the defendant, an emoji, he says sure, 8:35:34 p.m. on the 28th. And that was the last of them.
We're almost done, sir.
And you can feel free to stand.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
So that presentation is a compilation of text messages and phone calls between John O'Keefe and the defendant on January 28, 2022.
Yes, that was.
Aside from that compilation, are there other text messages and phone calls that you've reviewed between John O'Keefe and the defendant that evening, January 28, 2002, going into past midnight, January 29, 2022?
Yes, there's more text messages.
And those text messages and phone calls, are they a separate compilation from this?
Yes, that's correct.
At this time, I'd ask us to release Trooper Guarino and recall him at a later date.
Yes. All right. There's no objection, Mr. Alessi, correct?
No objection, subject to the bench.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much, Trooper. We'll see you another time.
Thank you, Your Honor. You just leave it.
Is this the time for me to see counsel at sidebar? Okay.
Exhibits, Your Honor, may I?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'm going to introduce exhibits or clips 7 through 11.
Thank you.
With the court's permission, could I begin with clip 7?
Yes.
When you walked out of the bar, how many drinks had you had?
I have had probably about 4, and not 4 that I completed either. I didn't drink maybe more than a few sips at the waterfall.
And 4 drinks you felt fine to drive?
Yep.
Clip 8, please.
Okay.
And is the level of intoxication pretty high here for everybody?
It's happy.
Yeah.
It's
Because you'd had a lot to drink, right?
I wouldn't say I had like a normal amount, like a vodka tonic every 40 minutes.
Okay. And so are you feeling like buzzed? And I'm not judging, I'm just trying to get a
Yeah,
sense.
buzzed.
Yeah.
Clip 9, please.
The final count of my alcohol intakes, probably about 5 or 6 or 4. The drinks that they were pouring me at McCarthy's, which is where I consumed most of the alcohol, was the weakest vodka tonic. It tasted just like all soda water with lime. Not that I need it to be a martini, but it might have had a splash of vodka in it. So I said, John, this drink tastes like it has no vodka in it. And he said, just get a shot and mix it yourself. So each drink was being counted as a double. So I would get a vodka tonic, and then I would pour a shot into it, so that would count as 2. But frankly, it just felt like a regular cocktail. It was just a really weak pour, so I asked for a shot. So for my taste, it just tasted like that's the normal strength of what a drink should be. So I had maybe 2 or 3 that are being counted as 4 and 6. And I don't know. I felt fine. I felt like I was buzzed. And then there was one drink, the last one that was given to me, which I would have counted as 3, but they're counting as my 6th cocktail. The guys that we were with brought around the shots, and they gave me one that I didn't drink, but I poured it in my drink. So that's now my 5th and 6th drinks, with the 7th, which is a shot that all the men did, and I poured it. So that one glass that I'm holding, that I go into the waterfall with, has 3 drinks in it, a vodka tonic and 2 shots. And which is why John said to me, you're not leaving that drink here, like you haven't touched it and just poured a bunch of vodka. He's like, just take it with you, which was something he always did. So then I go into waterfall, and I put that drink down, and I would socialize most of the time. So that would have been my 5th, 6th, and 7th drinks. Then John orders me a drink at the waterfall that I don't drink, that he takes with him. And then there was a round of shots that Chris Howard bought that I did take. So that would have been the night. But I did not consume 9 vodka martinis or take 9 shots, depending on how you count it. And the last 2 drinks I didn't touch.
Clip 10, please.
I mean, I'm not as clear as I would be if I hadn't been drinking. I mean, I had drank, so, and that led me to question, like, could I have hit him? Did I run over his foot or hit him in the knee? Did I incapacitate him? I mean, I always drive with my music blasting ever since I was 16, And I know when John got out of the car to go into Fairview, I know my car was blasting because when I got in it the next morning to go look for him, I had to immediately turn it down. And I don't know, it's stormy. I have had a few cocktails. I didn't black out, but I wasn't as lucid as I would have been if I had gone to bed at 9 and drank a tea. But so I was fuzzier than I would have been if I had had no alcohol.
Clip 11, please.
How did you feel after that many drinks? When you got in the car, did you feel like you could drive? And did you feel how I wouldn't have gotten on the expressway. I wouldn't have gotten on the expressway at 12:15 on January 29th. I mean, it was quiet. The roads were very quiet. You can see it on the videos. And I was going, when I've had a few drinks and I drive, I always drive extra slow. So I know my alerts aren't as sharp as they should be. But I shouldn't have been driving. But I don't think I was driving. I know I wasn't driving recklessly. I mean, I've got plenty of video of myself driving all over the place. I put my car in John's garage, which is incredibly narrow, and I had a very oversized SUV. You see me. There's a video of me driving through the intersection when we leave Waterfall to go to Brian Albert's, and I was always taught by my father, even when you have a green light, you always should tap the brake. You don't know who's going to run red. And I see me doing that multiple times between 12 and 1 and 5 and 6 a.m. So I know I was driving safely, not as safely or as alert as I would be if I had no alcohol. But I was not driving recklessly by any measure.
Thank you. Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes. Jurors, there was some confusion with counsel regarding witnesses. So those are the witnesses for today, so we're done for today. Counsel assures me that won't happen again, but more importantly, we're on track. We're on schedule, not going for the rest of the day, won't interfere with our schedule at all. It looks like, I can't tell with all the curtains here, but it looks like it's a beautiful day. You'll have a nice afternoon. Tomorrow we'll be going on a view. So for that, we're comfortable clothes. We'll be walking around a little bit. We'll be going by bus, and I'll have more instructions for you tomorrow morning. But please follow those instructions. Do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into this case. If you happen to see, hear, read anything about this case, please disregard it and let us know, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. Remember, tomorrow's the holiday.
All rise for the court, please. Close your notebooks and follow me. Jury's exited the courtroom.
All right. Mr. Brennan, have you had an opportunity to think about whether experts should be permitted to either be present or watch the proceeding. And I also want to know, are you expecting to put on any expert testimony tomorrow?
Dr. Fowler will testify tomorrow. I think that should be considered expert testimony. He provides the procedures and protocol for the testing of blood serum.
Okay.
So I think he's technically considered an expert, although one of the briefer ones.
All right. Does the defense want an expert to be able to watch that? All right. So I know we've had a lot going on this morning. Do you want to address this tomorrow? When do you want to address whether experts should be present?
I can address it tomorrow morning. I can consider
All right.
it.
We'll do that. And have you talked about who you all mean? Like, do you all know who you want to have exempt from the sequestration order?
We haven't got to that detail. I'm sure they have in mind who they want. I haven't gotten to that point yet.
All right.
We can have that discussion and so that we can present to tomorrow what my position is and address the court on the witnesses.
Sure, we can do that. And then I know you said that you've got an agreement that you'll provide witnesses or a list of witnesses in advance to defense counsel, and I'm sure you'll provide witnesses in advance to Mr. Brennan. Include me on that, please. I'd just like to know who's coming up the next day because I have to prepare as well.
Happy to. Thank you.
Okay? All right, so we'll see you tomorrow morning.
Thank you again.
All right.
The system's rigged, man, it's time to break free. Eyes wide open, gotta see what I see. Standing on the front lines, fighting for the truth. Lift the veil of lies, it's time to be the proof. Take a stand, don't you back down. Raise your voice, let's shake the town. We're the voices that won't be ignored. Breaking chains, yeah, we're ready for war. With the power of the people, we'll make them see a world of justice, united and free. United and free. We're taking it higher, fighting through the struggle, igniting the fire. No more silence, we'll make the noise loud. Together in this battle, standing strong and proud. Injustice fades when courage aligns. Rise up together, break the confines. We're the voices that won't be ignored. Breaking chains, yeah, we're ready for war. With the power of the people, we'll make them see a world of justice, united and free. United and free. United and free. So rise up now, it's our time to shine. Together we'll write a new paradigm. You paradigm, you paradigm. Whoa, whoa. We're the voices that won't be ignored. Breaking chains, yeah, we're ready for war. With the power of the people, we'll make them see a world of justice, united and free. United and free. So rise up now, it's our time to shine. United and free. Together we'll write a new paradigm. United and free. United and free. United and free.